Party people. So this is the Blackout Defense Quantum DTL version 2. Not only is this rifle equipped with some proprietary futuristic technology, but the version 2.0 has over 12 changes done to it since I did the review on the version 1 last year. To kind of put into perspective how much futuristic technology is in these guns, if you spec'd out the most expensive civilian grade AR-15 that you can think of right now, this one would still have technology that no other AR-15 in the world has. But what makes these even more special is they're nowhere near as expensive as you might expect, especially once you see everything that goes into it. So welcome back, party people. Hope you guys are doing awesome today. So ever since I reviewed the version 1 last year, this has single-handedly ruined most other mid-level and higher end level AR-15s for me, because this raised the bar on what types of quality, features, and technology can be included with an AR-15 at a given price point. In fact, they're so well engineered that they make guns like my Geissele Super Duty, my BCM Recce 14, and the Daniel Defense DDM4 version 7. It makes them feel like poverty ponies. Now, don't get it twisted. Don't mistake my excitement for being a shill. Blackout Defense didn't pay me any money to make these videos. In fact, Blackout Defense isn't even gonna see this video until you see this video. I say that because my opinions are my own. And if this fails in any way, you're gonna know about it in this video. Additionally, don't take this video as me telling you to go out and get one of these. I don't care if you go out and get one of these. I'm simply showing things that are available right now because this is a giant killer. This punches well above its price point. And I think as we go through this video and you see all the features that are in here, you're really going to start to understand, holy cow, why can't other AR-15 manufacturers produce this level of quality at the same price point? Later on in this video, I'm going to talk about if I had to spend my own money, would I buy it knowing what I know now? And if I did, how would I configure it? Now, with that said, as we're going through this video, we're gonna be not only talking about the Blackout Defense, but I'm gonna show you a lot of cool little accessories and stuff that I'm using. And if you see anything in this video that you wanna pick up for yourself, I will put a list together for you. Also, if you guys would like to help me out and also help make the 2A community a little bit stronger, all you gotta do is hit the subscribe button. So if you guys would like to help me in reaching people that have never been reached before and helping them go down the same rabbit holes that you and I have been down, all you gotta do is hit the subscribe button. So at this point in the video, you're probably wondering, okay, why does this gun make other higher end AR-15s feel cheap? Well, in order to understand that, you need to understand who Blackout Defense is. The Blackout Defense is a family-owned aerospace company first. And they have government contracts with companies like Honeywell, Raytheon, Boeing. They've designed parts for the AH-64 Apache helicopters and intercontinental ballistic missiles. I've talked about this in more depth in last year's video, but that's just the Cliff's Notes. They weren't a gun company first. They were an aerospace company. And because they were an aerospace company first, they have some of the most advanced machinery in their shop than I've ever seen in my life. And I've been in quite a few different manufacturer shops before. And so they use those machines and they take the technology and expertise that they know very well and they apply it to the AR-15. Now, my favorite aspect of the Quantum DTL 2.0 is they're 100% configurable and customizable. We'll get into that as we go through the individual parts in this video. Now, whenever you're gonna choose an AR-15, you really need to define what purpose you have. For example, if you're the kind of guy that's just gonna do mag dumps at the range once a month, this is not for you by any stretch of the imagination. You're better off just getting a $400, $500 rifle and just mag dumping that. The main purpose of this to be the ultimate general purpose or do-all purpose AR-15, with an emphasis on durability, speed, and accuracy. Now, you're probably thinking that all sounds counterintuitive. How could it do all three of those things? Because typically a very durable gun is a very heavy gun, and a fast gun is typically a lightweight gun, and an accurate gun is typically heavy and long. So the way they're able to accomplish all three of those goals is with the futuristic technology called the Quantum DTL version 2.0. In order to understand that better, we need to take a look at it up close a little bit. In order to understand why the Blackout Defense rifle is able to be durable, fast, and sub-MOA accurate comes down to the barrel and the DTL system. DTL stands for dual taper lock. What that essentially means is it has a two-stage barrel nut system, and it has two spots on the barrel near the chamber that press the barrel nut into the upper receiver. Right here, you have a 60-degree ramp, and then right here, you have a second 60-degree ramp. On your traditional barrels, you will have this 90-degree flange. And something that Blackout Defense noticed was whenever you're using a standard barrel nut system, the pressure on this flange isn't always uniform. So they created this guy. This is the barrel nut here. This one is different than the original, but before we get into what's different about it, let me just show you how it works. On the inside of here, we have our 60-degree ramp. This ramp is gonna push up against the shoulder of this ramp. And then all you do with this one is tighten it down, and then you time it for the gas tube in one of these slots right here. You don't have to put this one at a specific torque setting. And that's where the secondary barrel nut comes from. If you look inside here, you'll see another 60-degree ramp, and that ramp marries up with this one here. You will torque this one down to about 40 to 45 foot-pounds. Theoretical application of this, because the ramp is on here instead of a flat shoulder right here, it will concentrically perfectly center the barrel into the upper receiver. Second benefit it does is you have the chamber supported all the way out this far on the barrel, which means it will help balance the harmonics of the barrel a little bit better. So let's just pretend, for example, that this is a standard barrel nut and a standard barrel, and this is the DTL barrel. You'll notice that the support system doesn't come out as far, so the barrel whip can occur from here all the way out. Whereas this one adds a couple of inches, so it will minimize the whip because you have a shorter amount of barrel here than you do up here. Now, the other problem that Blackout Defense noted with barrels that use a standard flange is, say this thing is torqued down, and because the torque along that ledge isn't uniform, if you have a complete gun and the muzzle gets hit, say you drop it on the ground or something hits it laterally or up and down, those weight distribution spots on this ledge will shift, causing your gun to lose zero. And so with this system, they're claiming you won't lose zero. In my original video, I took some layout fluid, put it on this ramp here, torqued the barrel down, and showed how there was zero hot spots on these ledges after you torqued it down. On the original barrel nut that was on this gun, this was mostly smooth, and there was only one little place where the gas tube would come out. One of the downsides to the original design, let's just pretend this is the barrel nut, because it only had one spot for timing the gas tube, whenever you threaded this on by hand, the spot for the gas tube had to land in a certain spot. So when you tightened it down, it would be perfect. Well, if it didn't land in that certain spot, you'd have to put some shims on the barrel to make sure that you could get that going. And so he was like, I want to get rid of that. So now you have multiple places to time it at. Additionally, this acts as a heat sink. Because you want to get all the heat out of the chamber as quickly as possible, he increased the surface area of the barrel nut so that it would draw heat out of the chamber, which means your barrel won't get as hot and it will stay accurate for longer. As a result of this, the barrel nut has changed. The original barrel nut was like this. There was a hole in here and you simply put that on, cranked it down. This one, on the other hand, a little bit different. There's not going to be any slipping with this at all. Now, the biggest change to their new barrel nut is this barrel nut is now not only compatible with their DTL, where you have the ramp inside, but now if you had a blackout gun and let's just say you wanted to run a standard barrel similar to this one on there, well, if you flip this around, there's now a 90-degree shoulder in there, and you can simply run this with any barrel that you choose without having to get a new barrel nut. So that's a lot of technology just since the last version upgraded in just their barrel nut system. So that's one reason why this gun is very durable and very accurate. So Blackout Defense has a sub-MOA guarantee on all of their rifles, regardless of the barrel length. This one is a 13.9, this one is a 14.5, and they also offer a 16-inch. And the reason they're able to guarantee sub-MOA accuracy, at least when the gun is brand new, is not only due to the dual taper design of this, but also because of these concentric rings that go throughout here. These concentric rings have a couple of different purposes, and although it's minor, when you combine these with the DTL and everything else that he does, it adds up to be something greater than the sum of the parts. And so these concentric rings, number one, act as a little bit of an extra heat sink by adding more surface area, drawing heat out of the barrel. The second reason is when he does these concentric rings, he puts them in specific locations to further reduced barrel whip. The theory is, if we pretend we're looking at the gun from the side and the barrel whips up and down, they will prevent more up and down movement and kind of create like a spring compression where it moves more back and forth than up and down. Now for his barrels, he's using 416R stainless steel 223 Wild. They're all a 1-in-8 twist rate. Now I'm not going to go into the woods on this one because I have a complete hour-long video about choosing AR-15 barrels and the pros and cons of each. But whenever you choose an AR-15 barrel, there are trade-offs from accuracy and lifespan. Typically, 416R stainless are the most accurate, but typically they have the lowest lifespan. So typically on an untreated stainless steel barrel, you are going to get sub-MO accuracy, typically up to about 4,000 to 5,000 rounds. Once you get past that point, the groupings will start opening up. But on stainless steel, they open up quite dramatically. So you'll go from sub-MOA to about 4 MOA. From, let's just pretend it started opening up at 5,000 rounds, it will open up dramatically in the next couple of hundred rounds. Whereas 4150 chromoly vanadium and even chrome-lined cold hammer forged barrels, they're gonna wear a lot slower on the internal rifling, and they open up over time, but they open up gradually. So to combat that, Blackout Defense has 2 types of barrel finishes for their barrels now. Last year, they only had 1. The first one is gonna be nitriting. So it'll be this barrel, but it'll be nitrited. The nitriting makes the barrel last about 25% longer on average, and it makes the hardness of the metal, it takes it up to about 80 Rockwell. Add a lot to the hardness so that the barrel rifling won't wear out as quickly. Also, it won't open up as dramatically once you get to the end of the barrel life. In fact, Blackout Defense says that on their nitrated barrels, they will maintain 1.5 MOA and lower from 0 to 8,000 rounds on average. And obviously that's all dependent on how you shoot the gun. If you're just doing a ton of rapid fire, you're gonna burn out that barrel a lot quicker. The maximum MOA should be about 1.5. And then after 12,000 rounds, it will open up to about 3 MOA, and it will stay at 3 MOA on average from 12,000 rounds up to 25,000 rounds. At 25,000 rounds to 30,000 rounds, they recommend a barrel change. Now, one of the downsides to a nitrated barrel is the nitriting process itself. You see, whenever you have a raw barrel, you're gonna do some stress relieving on that barrel. And the stress relieving occurs around 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, nitriting also occurs around 900 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's only a little window of temperature range that if it's not done perfectly, when they start doing the nitriting, it will actually de-stress the barrel even more, which could not only affect how long your barrel lasts, but also how long the accuracy lasts in your barrel. And so now they have a different offering as of this year. This is the same exact barrel, but these are cryo-treated. Now, I looked up what different companies charge for cryo-treated barrels versus their nitrated barrels, and typically they're about $80 to $100 more. These are only $25 more than the standard nitrated barrels, and the owner of Blackout Defense said they're not worried about charging a ton. They're literally only charging the cost of the nitrogen used to do cryo-treating. So the way cryo-treating works, you have to take these barrels from room temperature down to negative 320 degrees, I believe, and that takes 72 hours to take this barrel down to negative 320. Then it takes an additional 24 hours to bring it back from negative 320 up to room temperature. So these barrels take 4 days to make. These barrels can be made in 24 hours. So that's typically why these barrels cost more, is because they take 4 times as long to manufacture. The theoretical reasoning behind the cryo treating is it gives the metal a better structural integrity. Taking it down to negative 320 degrees makes the barrel harmonically balanced better, so you get less barrel whip. And doing cryo treating also gives the barrel an overall better heat dissipation factor than nitrating, because nitrating is a coating and it can kind of retain heat at times. Now, the other benefit to cryo treating versus nitrating, it will actually self-polish the internal rifling of this barrel. Whereas on the nitrated, because the coating is so hard, it can't really self-polish. Now, the downside to this one is you're gonna have a little less life with it. So this one up to 1.5 MOA, up to about 8,000 rounds, whereas this one was 12,000 rounds. But during those 8,000 rounds, you're gonna have better sub-MOA groups versus the nitrating. After about 8,000 rounds, this one will open up to about 2 MOA, from 8,000 rounds up to 15,000 rounds, and then they recommend a barrel change at about 15 to 20,000 rounds on these. So if you're the kind of guy that likes to do a lot of rapid fire, nitrating is going to be for you. If you're the guy that likes to have the most sub-MOA accuracy that you could possibly have, this is the barrel for you. Either way, both barrels have a sub-MOA accuracy from the factory using high quality 77 grain. Now, the barrel nut and the barrel technology that this gun has explains why this gun is able to have sub-MOA accuracy despite being a 13.9 or a 14.5 inch barrel. But what kind of technology are they using to make this gun very durable? Why these guns are so durable has to do with the handguard and how the handguard is attached. The handguard uses these high strength steel bolts right here that can be torqued down to 10.83 foot-pounds. That is absolutely insane. The highest I've seen before, I believe, was around 7 foot-pounds, and that's on the Geisley Super Duties. You have these 2 nuts right here. Each of these nuts has 4 spikes, 1 at each corner. And those spikes, as you tighten these down to 10.83 foot-pounds, they're gonna sink into the metal of the handguard down here at the bottom. And at the top, they're actually gonna bite into the barrel nut itself. Additionally, those cross bolts go across these channels of the barrel nut here. That locks on and prevents it from sliding off in this direction, and it helps prevent rotation. Up here, where the handguard meets the upper receiver, inside of here are two high-strength steel dowels, and they go into these between the upper and the handguard, and that also prevents rotation. Needless to say, with these handguards, you can run night vision and lasers and get everything zeroed just perfectly. Speaking of the handguards, we do need to cover some things because they have changed some things from last year. So if you look at this handguard here, this is last year's model, all the way around. And then up here, you have all these weight relief cuts. Up here on the front, you have a QD spot. And then back here, you have a QD spot. Now, on last year's model, they didn't include this steel mount for your QD socket, so you had to buy one. Now they are included, which is a good thing. However, this year they made a couple of subtle changes to the handguard. Number one, they still have the M-lock all the way around except up here on the top, where they only have out here on the last two. And then up here, they made these a lot larger to save more weight. And then they also added some relief cuts right here and right here to help dissipate the heat out of the barrel nut, as well as making the aesthetics more uniform. And I'm really glad that they chose to leave the chemo on the end, because in other companies, whenever they do this, they take a lot of weight out right up here and they do it all the way down. But they left these here on this corner just in case you need to mount a light or something down here towards the end, because everyone has a different mount. Like, not all mounts mount right here. The handguard isn't the only thing that makes this gun durable. They have a ton of other things that we can't really see, and even if I spoke about it, it wouldn't really matter because we can't see them. The main thing that makes these guns so durable is all the R&D and the care that they take in manufacturing all the parts and doing quality control before these go out the door. But what makes these guns fast? Well, the first thing that makes these guns fast is being lighter weight. You know, because we don't have to have heavy profile barrels and long barrels to make these accurate, they're able to save weight versus other sub-MOA type guns. This gun, without anything on it, is about 7 pounds on the nose. That's not the lightest weight rifle, but show me another 7-pound gun that can shoot just as fast and accurately as this. Now, don't let that weight fool you, because they have done a phenomenal job with the weight distribution on here. Despite me having this light and this blast forwarding device on here, this gun, most of the weight is back here, not out here. So whenever you're at the range shooting and coming out like this, it's very quick and easy for you to do so just based on the weight distribution. But the main thing that makes this gun fast lies right here. So things to note about the triggers. They have these available for AR-15s, AR-10s, and the SIG MCX. They come in two pull weights. You have 3 pounds and you have 4.5 pounds. They are all single stage. They don't have any double stage. On the trigger shoes, they have 3 different shoes to choose from. They have this one, which is the hybrid. It is about $15 more than the other ones. And then this one here is their flat shoe. Just a heads up, this is the oldest version of the Blackout Defense guns. This is one that I put together last year for a giveaway. So when this channel hits 1 million subscribers, we're gonna give this away. I do have more info in the description box down below. And they also have a curved model like this one. Also, on the insides of their triggers, everything is tacked down so that none of these screws will back out. One of the problems I've had on a lot of other types of drop-in triggers like this is whatever screws are in there, they will typically back out over time, and then it can cause hammer follow. So he tacks these down very well at perfect specs every single time. Now let me show you the magic of this guy. So this is called the zero trigger, and the reason it is there's zero take up. Watch. Okay, now let me show you the reset. If you blink, you'll miss it. Let me show you again. Break. Here comes the reset. This is definitely one of the best triggers that I've ever tested. Prior to testing this trigger, my all-time favorite was the Geissele SD3G, or their super dynamic 3-gun trigger. This thing is so much faster. It is insane. And the cool thing about a lot of their stuff is that they can be purchased separately if you don't like the entire gun. Another change for this year is they now have an optional adjustable gas block. On last year's model, they didn't have it, and now they do, because a lot of guys that were running suppressors were saying, hey, we would love for you to add an adjustable gas block, because when we run certain suppressors, it gets overgassed and things of that nature. It is an option, it is an upcharge for it. It's not standard. So you'll get a standard fixed gas block unless you option out the adjustable. It is a superlative gas block, so they are fairly reliable as far as adjustable gas blocks go. Another change that they have is on their muzzle devices. They now have, I believe, 7 or 8 different muzzle devices to choose from, whereas last year they only had about 3 or 4. So most of the muzzle devices they have to offer are made by Blackout Defense, and they have a licensing agreement with Dead Air and the Chemo device. So all of them are gonna have a Chemo attachment on them. They also offer a Hooksworks device. More information's over at this for you. But what's new for this year is not only do they have more muzzle devices, but let's say you're running a different type of QD system like Surefire, and you don't want to use any of their muzzle devices. Well, there's an option to not include a muzzle device. It actually subtracts the price of the muzzle device off of the gun, and then you can send in your own when you order the gun. And so if you're running a different type of QD system, not everyone is a fan of the Chemo adapters. So if you're not stuck with it. Moving back to the receiver group, they did a lot of changes with their receiver. First change that you're really gonna see right off the bat is gonna be the magwell. Now we have a squared off magwell with a lot larger of a magwell flare in here, and all of the angles and stuff are a lot more uniform and smoother going in here. On the original version, it had a magwell shaped like this, and some people loved it and some people hated it. When you look at the magwell here, you'll notice that this edge is a lot sharper than it is on here, where it's a lot smoother. Also, on last year's model, the dust cover was a standard mil-spec dust cover, and now they're using the Magpul polymer dust covers, and you can choose the different colors of the dust covers. Now, another place where they made some changes are right here in the controls. If we zoom in, you look at the OG version, you had a standard button here for your magazine release. Now you have a different button for your magazine release, but now the magazine release is ambi, whereas before it wasn't. Also, if you look at the bolt lock and bolt release, it's much more robust than the standard mil-spec version that was on last year's model. Another welcome addition is now we have ambidextrous bolt release. It is not bolt lock, and we will talk about the pros and cons of that as we get towards the shooting footage of this video. All of these have anti-walk pins in them, and all of them have the same exact safeties. You can choose to get 90-degree only, or you can choose to get the 45-90s, and then I love their safeties. In fact, for years, I've been a big fan of Radian safeties, but these are just as good as the Radians. It's longer, it's a little bit longer on the primary side as it is on the offhand side, and you can remove these and switch them around how you want. The charging handle is ultimately the same. This is one of the most robust charging handles that I've ever tested before. One, I really love how big the charging handles are, so when you have a scope on here, you can still grab regardless. And something else you will notice is one of the weak spots is usually in these pins right here. If you look at any of your mil-spec charging handles, those pins are very tiny. These are not only pins, these are high-strength steel Allen bolts. And so you can actually swap those out very, very easily. You'll also notice back here where the red mark is, the castle nut has been staked properly. Now, another difference with their controls, aside from adding, more robust controls and making everything ambi, now you can get every single control Cerakoted in the color that you choose. So for example, in this one, I had the safeties and the charging handle Cerakoted, but I didn't get the controls Cerakoted. That is something I wanted to note as a change from previous version 1. Another thing that is different between not only last year's model, but even the model that I have, is now you will be able to get anodized buffer tubes. So before, they all had black nitrided buffer tubes, which, don't get me wrong, these black nitrided buffer tubes are very, very smooth. But now you could choose to say get green. This is the clear anodized, which matches the upper receiver. And the only reason that they're not on this gun is these just launched. So from now on, all future guns will have the option to get anodized buffer tubes. Something else that is new for this year is if you look at their lower receivers here, on last year's model, they had this little pressure pad that you can see here in yellow, and then on this year's model, they don't. So what they do is when they machine their uppers and their lowers, they match them together so that you can get phenomenal lockup. And these, whenever you bought the gun, they came with these pressure pads. There's actually a spot that was cut out for them. And these pressure pads would just add more tension between the upper and the lower. And they included like a grip of like a dozen of these pads in the case with the rifle, but I've never had to change these. And when I first heard that they were removing that feature, I was a little bit bummed. But even though they removed it, there is zero play. I mean, I cannot get even a half a millimeter of play between this upper and the lower. Just listen. That's just the stock rattling. That is crazy. Now on their bolt carrier group, Carpenter 158 tool steel, and it is magnetic particle inspected, and it is completely nitrided. Also, the gas key bolts are properly staked. It's not anything special, but it's not a bad one. These run perfectly fine. Now, I've never had any problems out of their bolt carrier groups ever on my version 1 or on this one. The only reason I even mention this is because I was kind of comparing it to the Geissele Super Duty a little bit earlier, and the Geissele Super Duty does some crazy stuff to their bolt carrier groups, and they get really into the metallurgy of it. They've even hired specific metallurgists to make sure that their bolt carrier groups are a certain grade. But with that said, I'm assuming if they did do a ton of R&D and try to do something special with the bolt carrier group, then the price of the gun wouldn't be as good as it is. And so just keep in mind, no matter what you're looking at out there on the market, if you're doing a comparison between like a Super Duty or something and this, you just got to understand that there's a give and take for different features of a gun. Now, I know I just dumped a ton of tech specs on you, and I'm sure it's fried your brain at this point. And for that, I'm sorry, not sorry. But I guess the question now is, how do all those things add up and affect the shooting performance of this gun? Now, just as a caveat that you guys should know, I was not able to do any long range shooting with this gun because I got this gun in the summertime in Arizona. And as a lot of you guys know, it's been between 115 and 120 degrees here, and it's highly illegal for me to shoot out in the desert because of fire restrictions. So I've been limited to indoor ranges only. I will have a video coming out in the near future where I do accuracy tests not only with this gun, but of some super secret guns that I haven't reviewed yet. If you watch my previous review on the version 1 of the Blackout Defense DTL, it shoots exactly the same. It is one of the smoothest, fastest shooting guns that I've ever experienced in my life. The recoil impulse, surprisingly, was actually flatter than the version 1. On the version 1, we do have a muzzle brake on here, and on the version 2, we have a closed-in 3-prong flash hider. It's a hybrid between a comp and a flash hider. And I was worried that the hybrid version wouldn't shoot as flat as this one, but when you look at the footage, it actually looks like this one shoots just as flat, if not flatter, than the one with the brake on it. Additionally, when I threw on the blast forwarding device on it, it didn't reintroduce any more recoil to it. And so that just goes to speak for not only the muzzle device, but how well they balance the gassing and the buffer weight and spring in their guns to make them run as smooth and flat as possible. Throughout the testing, at least at the indoor range, I mainly only ran 55 grain 223 PMC bronze. I do have some higher quality 77 grain that we're gonna use for accuracy tests in the future. Additionally, during the testing, I tested a few different types of magazines. Usually I always test them with P-mags, I test them with some ETS mags. However, in this test, I introduced some new mags that I've been testing over the past couple of months. I picked up a grip of these guys. These are the Lancer mags, and these are actually a translucent green, and they match the gun almost perfectly. Every single time the bolt locked open, this thing had zero malfunctions. It had perfect ejection every single time, and I cannot wait for the life of me to take this thing out to the desert and actually do some bench rest shooting with it and see what kind of groups we can get it with this, just to make sure that the manufacturer claims align with reality. Now, something you should note, Scottsdale Gun Club does carry these, and they're actually having an event on Saturday, September 23rd, where you can go in and shoot these. So if you are local, or if you're gonna be in Scottsdale on September 23rd, you can go into Scottsdale Gun Club and actually try before you buy. Now let's talk about the cons about this gun, because every gun has cons regardless of how great it is. Con number 1 about this is I love absolutely everything about this gun. I really do, but there is 2 things that kind of had me going, I really love the ambidextrous bolt release system. It is very nice. When I'm at the range, I'm able to do mag reloads, press out and just touch this button with my index finger and keep on shooting. However, over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to play with a couple of different guns that not only have ambi bolt release, but have ambi bolt lock. and it makes a big difference on clearing malfunctions. For example, this is a gun I haven't reviewed yet and I'm working on it. These guns are completely ambi. This one has not only ambi bolt release, but ambi bolt lock. And what's great about that, let's say you're out at the range, you're shooting, oh no, I got a malfunction. You can just press the button, lock it open, strip your mag, and check your chamber. Okay, very, very easy. Now with ambi bolt releases, yes, you are able to do mag swaps, get back up on target faster, but if you have a malfunction, you still have to release your grip, pull it back, get it locked open, inspect, and then do your mag changes. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but I will say, once you start playing with an ambi bolt lock, it'll change your life. And the only reason that they're not including it with these is they want to keep their prices as low as possible because that technology is patented and it's very expensive to license the rights to that. And the second con would be the lack of a forward assist. Now, people will debate back and forth whether or not you need a forward assist. Personally, for me, in my limited experience in the past 7 years of shooting guns, I've never had to use my forward assist. But that's not to say that I would never need to use it. But don't worry, because I just spoke to Blackout Defense the other day. They just got a federal law enforcement contract and they're gonna be producing some guns for that agency. They are gonna be creating guns with forward assist on there. And the owner of Blackout Defense said, I'm gonna be able to offer those uppers to the general public. But not only that, I asked him another question that was not only important to me, but I think that would be important to a lot of you guys. So let's suppose you already owned the version 1 model of the Quantum DTL and you're a little bit bummed because the new one has a ton of different upgrades on it. Blackout Defense offers a lifetime free maintenance. So if you need anything done on your gun, they won't charge you for the labor. You just have to pay for the shipping of the rifle and you have to pay for if you get any new parts. This only applies to pre-existing customers. If you had the old version and you wanted to get the new lower receiver, or you wanted to get the new handguard, or you wanted to get the cryo barrel, or you wanted to get the new updated barrel nut system, or anything like that, he will do a discount program where he'll swap out your old parts for the new parts. He didn't give me exact prices, but one thing a lot of people know, and I'm sure you guys that own these guns can comment down in the comment section, they take care of their customers. They want to make sure that their customers that get their stuff are gonna have the best experience possible. The reason I asked him that question was not only because of the version 1, but I asked him because what if somebody really wanted a forward assist and he's not gonna have them for a few months? Like, what if they wanted to get one of these guns now, but then they might regret buying it because it didn't come with the forward assist? It's the same thing. If you picked one of these guys up and then in a few months they came out with the upper with the forward assist, you could just send this back to them and they will do a discounted price for the upper receiver with the forward assist and then send it back to you. So let's talk about the pricing and the colors. So as I mentioned earlier in the video and showed you throughout the video, every single piece of this rifle can be configured to be custom to how you like it to an extent. They have a lot of drop-down menus of choosing each and every single little part, and that includes colors. So you can choose to do different color upper and lower, and a different color door, different color handguard, stock, and now with the buffer tubes, you can do that as well. Now the downside to the colors is although it's awesome, it adds quite a bit of money to the price. As an example, right now, the cheapest way that you can kind of configure these without my special instructions over at the parts list is for about $22.65-ish, and that is with a 16-inch barrel using a 90-degree safety. If you didn't want the 16-inch barrel, it costs a little bit more because the muzzle device has to be pin welded, a little under $2,300. But if you optioned it out with the adjustable gas block and all the muzzle devices and all the colors, you know, it can go up to like $2,700, $2,800. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there, this is not in the cards for you, and I totally understand that. And don't worry, I have a video coming on a very affordable that has a lot of high-end features on it. And so that video will be coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed. To answer the question from earlier in the video, knowing what I know now, would I buy this for my own money? And I'm sure you've already guessed it, yes, I totally would. As I stated earlier, this has 100% ruined other higher-end AR-15s for me. I'm not talking about KAC and I'm not talking about LMT. I understand those are on a whole nother level. Those are also like $4,000 or more, almost unobtainium. If I was gonna configure this and spend my own money on this, I would do it as a solid black gun because most of the price increases come from the different colors. I would go with the nitrided barrel because I'm the kind of person that doesn't shoot long range sub MOA accuracy shots often. Now, depending if you're gonna run a suppressor or not, that would determine whether you want the adjustable gas block or not. I will say with the fixed gas block without a suppressor, it runs 100% perfectly on the gassing. Now, I did run a suppressor on the version 1 last year, and it was slightly overgassed, but it wasn't bad at all. So that's something that only a decision that you can make for yourself. But if you're on a budget, I think that would be the best value for what you get. Now, 22-ish hundred, even less with my special instructions, is a lot of money for an AR-15. However, if you take that price point and compare it to the Geissele Super Duty, the Geissele Super Duty is a fantastic gun, but you cannot choose your muzzle device. And this is not a sub-MOA gun. This is a fast gun, but it's not a sub-MOA gun. And this cost exactly the same as the Blackout Defense. And it has far less technology in it, except for their bolt carrier group. They do a lot of fancy stuff with that. Same thing that goes for the Daniel Defense. And if you really want to see how much Blackout Defense gives you for the money, I highly recommend that you go check out my video on the Daniel Defense, and then you will actually see how much you don't get for the money versus them. And I'm not picking on them, it's just the reality of things. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And until next time, I love you, and you guys stay sexy.